Emily from Type AB Life, and in this video I am going to show you how to use this template to track your monthly expenses, including those that are quarterly, annual, or irregular expenses. And I've done this because I have not found a really good template that allows me to track those expenses. So in a previous video, I showed how to calculate those expenses. I call them the reserves, and I save that money each month so that the money is there when I need it. And then I have a second video that goes over this annual or yearly budget sheet, and a third video that goes over this monthly budget sheet. And the reason that these quarterly, annual, and irregular expenses have kind of bothered me is because I allocate that money every month. So I have here, in this new template, I'm using the reserves in this row. So that money is spent but not spent. So I don't want to add it that I've saved that or spent that $400 for property tax money in January if I actually haven't sent that money in, and then put the full amount in the December when it's due in that tab, and then it's like I've spent double. So I've kind of struggled with this, and this year this is the template that I've come up with. So all the items that are checked in the saved column are those quarterly, annual, or irregular expenses that will not be spent each month, but that money does need to be allocated or saved, which in my bank, I have a separate account that money goes into, so it's there and ready. And in my template, I track what that balance is at the beginning of the month and again at the end of the month so that I know that money is there. And I've added this row in the template for what I call the reserves so that I know it is allocated, but it just wasn't spent in the spent column. If you would like to use or try this budget, you can find a link to the copy of it in the description box, but I'm going to fill this out in this video to show you how the template is set up. So everything happens in this transaction box, and it will auto-populate based on formulas in the spent and actual boxes here. So the first thing we need to do in this template is to duplicate this tab, because this monthly budget tab is the template to use for every month. So I create a copy of that, and then I'm going to rename it. I'm going to rename it January. So I'm going to add up here January budget, so I know that it's January. And then, like I said, we stick with everything in the transaction table. So let's say we get paid on the 1st and 15th of every month. We will add in that first income. So I'll find income 1. These drop-down boxes have all of the tags that are part of the budget item and income table. So I select the one that applies here. Maybe I'll call it paycheck 1. It's going into the checking account, and it is half that income. So we can see that this formula auto populates the amount in the actual column for income 1. And we'll do the same for income 2. So I will call it income 2. Paycheck 1 also going into checking, and that would be half of that, $12.50. So here I've got paid. Maybe I'll say on the 2nd is where I'm going to add in the reserves. So on my yearly tab, I've calculated that $993 needs to be saved each month to cover these expenses throughout the year. So I'll just call this reserves or transfer to the reserves. It's done in my checking account and is $993. So that does show as money that I have saved, but it's tracked a little differently. It also populates down here as that all the items that are checked above are compensated for in this tab this month, and I won't be adding anything to the actual spent items unless I actually spend that money. So also on the 2nd, maybe that's when we do our savings for our Roth IRA. And we're going to maybe call that retirement savings. And that came out of our checking, and we had budgeted $1,000 for that. So here it showed up as the $1,000 in our Roth IRA. It's also being added to what is being saved. So then maybe we go get groceries on the 3rd of the month. I'm going to add in that date and then find groceries. I could probably just type it in. There it is, groceries and toiletries. So let's say we went to the food store. That was put on my credit card maybe, and let's say that it was $89. So now we see that $89 has populated in our total expenses. And here in the, I think I have it in fixed. Yes, I do. There it is. Row 20, groceries and toiletries, that $89 has auto-populated there. Let's say we also then go get fuel. So we fill up at the gas station, put that on the credit card, and maybe that was $35. And then maybe we needed to get an oil change to start the year off right. So on Sunday, maybe we went to the oil changing place and we added in car maintenance. Gonna add an oil change. Maybe that was put on credit. And maybe that was $72. Then maybe we got groceries again next week. If we go shopping weekly, I should just be typing in groceries. So we went back to the food store. Maybe we put that on credit as well. And maybe that week it was $94. And maybe while we were out, we filled up our gas tank again. Put that on credit. And maybe that was $33 this time. So now if we get paid on the 15th, maybe we have our second paycheck for our first income that went into checking, and that would be the difference there. And again, for income 2 was the second paycheck for that income, came into the checking account. There we have that. And then the last one I'm going to put in here is maybe on the 16th. That's when we did our just general savings. And that was in our bank account. And I think what we had saved there was $2,000 for the month. Yes. Okay. So here we can see that just by adding in the transaction table, the amounts have auto-populated in this template. So here for groceries, we see that we've added them separately in this table, but they total up there. So halfway through the month, we are at $183 of our $400 allocated for groceries. Car maintenance showed up as well. Our fuel, we had a couple stops at the gas station, and those are added in here as well. We see our Roth IRA money was allocated, as well as our savings and those reserves again. So we see our totals here totaling up. And up in our income, we see what was forecasted and what our actual income was based on what was in the table. And we can see what we earned, what we've saved, what we've spent, and what the difference is there. So let's say we have an expense that would be or is part of the reserve fund. So let's say we have a medical expense coming up, and maybe I know I'm going to the doctor this month, and I know that my insurance has a $30 copay for a visit to a primary physician. So let's say I go see that doctor on the 17th. It's a medical appointment. I'll put in there copay. Maybe I charged it to my credit card and it was $30. Now, if I know that in advance, when I make the transfer to the reserves fund, I can just deduct that out of there so that it's the $30 stays in my checking account for later in the month when I go to that appointment. So maybe I save $963 instead of $933 because I know that $30 copay is coming up. Now, maybe there's a different expense that's coming up. Maybe it's a giving type of thing. So maybe my kid or a neighbor at school is having a fundraiser, and for $20 they have a discount card that I could buy. So school fundraiser, and maybe I have that as checking because I had cash for that $20. So that's populated there, but I don't want the $20 for the reserves to be counted twice in the money for the reserves that month, as well as when I actually spent that money. So I think I'll have to add in there the same day, the reserves, and maybe I'll add in specifically it was a school fundraiser in the checking account to subtract, so minus the $20, so that the money that was spent for the fundraiser is actually calculated as being spent here in the budget item table. But then I make sure that the amount in the reserves now has not only accounted for the $30 medical expense, but also the $20 fundraising expense. So that will be added in there, and then I can just in my account make that transfer. If that's not $20 that I just want to cash flow anyway with maybe any of that net difference that I have each month. So if you have a different way of tracking these quarterly, annual, or kind of irregular expenses, let me know, because I haven't seen many of them, and I'd love to know what other ways there are to track this, as this is something new that I'm trying. If you found this helpful, I encourage you to give this video a thumbs up and use that tracking sheet from the link in the description box to help you with your irregular expenses. Thanks so much for watching.